Now I feel a lot of pressure. I'm very scared. So this isn't going to be funny. Everyone else was funny. I'm not very funny. We're comfortable with that? Okay. So do we have a slide progressor, or am I dinging the thing? Dinging the thing. All right. So, and my temporary basal is on because it's 2 hours after for me, and I'm starting to go a little low. So we're going to be patient with that. But this is about balancing diabetes, because I figured all of it out. No. All right. But just to kind of get things out of the way, Tandem Diabetes has been awesome, and they have brought me here to speak with you. And as part of that, that means that I have to have a disclaimer slide. I don't want to read the whole thing because it's wicked boring. So just look at it. Do you feel like I've disclaimed all of this? Do you feel comfortable with what I'm going to say and know that it's not their fault? Cool. This is the disclosure slide, also as important, and mostly because of the second bullet point, which is that I have 2 children. And I think they're super cute, and they're way cuter than your children. So my bias is that. No offense to you and your cute kids, but mine wins. Okay, moving on. And then I just kind of wanted to address the topic first, because it does make it sound like I have a lot of things figured out, which I absolutely do not. But I wrote a book called Balancing Diabetes, which was not my fault because they picked the title. I would have never called it that. I would have had a lot more curse words and things about how I don't have things figured out, but they wanted to go with a title that inspired people and made them think that they'd actually learn something. I don't know. So, but that's the name of the book. But I still don't have anything balanced. So as long as you're comfortable having a conversation about balance and diabetes when I don't know how to do either of those things very well, we're going to move from there. This is my version of balance. Yeah? Yeah. Because this makes the most sense to me. You can't do... I had to make sure I actually had pants on for a quick second. I'm like, I put pants on, right? But this is what balance is to me. It's kind of being graceful and gracious about the stuff that you screw up, which is where I excel, at the screwing up part. So I've had type 1 diabetes for 30 years. Well, how do you get a legend sticker? Whatever, I don't have a legend. This slide is up here just so I can get a sticker, and I didn't get my damn sticker, so I want my sticker. 30 years. When I was diagnosed, I learned to give injections on an orange. Who did that here? Right, because they give you the orange and they say, this is the most like human skin. And they say, press the syringe tip into the orange and it pops through the same way that skin does. And you're like, all right, that's cool. So I'm 7 years old at Rhode Island Hospital, going through my diagnosis, and I injected so many pieces of fruit with saline. Like, I was a professional at this version of injecting insulin. But it was completely different when they said, okay, cool, you've got this down. Now you have to learn to press that syringe against you. And that was kind of mind-blowing. So this was my first glucose meter. I was actually sent home in 1986 with the urinalysis kit, only it was a little different than the one that has been shown already. I had the test tubes and the pause egg coloring kit tabs, where you drop them in, they change color and all that sort of thing, and they would get hot if your blood sugar was high, and it would stay cool in blue if your blood sugar was low, so we like the cool blue ones. And I feel bad that Aaron already stole my thunder on this one. Right, but he did not mention, this is the actual size of this lancing device, which is messed up. The gauge of the lancet was 2, and you would have to put the lancet in and pull it back, and it would make this awful, cocking noise. Pardon? It made a noise that is still embedded in my head. It is the worst noise I've ever heard. And then you had to press the red bit on top to send that thing rocketing over towards the top of your 7-year-old finger. And they're like, it's cool, you'll love this, do this 5 to 6 times a day. Great, awesome. So I did. So all the tools and hardware I was given, that was one thing. But after you're diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, then you have to go and continue to live the rest of your life. And that's where the balance and the stress kind of comes in. So at this table, I'm the one with the cat and the sugar-free candies in front of me, because this was 3 months after I was diagnosed. I was diagnosed on September 11th, 1986, and this is December 20th, 1986. This is my first sleepover ever. Now, if you have kids, who here has kids? The idea of I have 2 kids, the idea of sending my kids to sleep at someone else's house gives me hives, because it makes me nervous, because I won't be able to sit on them and hatch them, and that's my job as their mother is to... and my kids don't have diabetes, so thinking about that in terms of my mother, fresh off of my type 1 diabetes diagnosis, sending me to sleep at my friend Jill's house for the first time ever blows my mind. But she really was strict about the fact that diabetes was not going to be this thing that kept me from doing things. It was going to be just the thing that we dealt with while I did the other things, the life things. So I went to Jill's house for her 7th birthday, and I slept over, and I have 0 memories of I don't know, blood sugar checks and insulin checks and all that sort of stuff. But I know that my mom and Jill's mom became friends within a 24-hour period, and this is why. Because my mom dropped me off at about 2 in the afternoon, and we all played, and the kids were out in the yard. And my mom was inside with Jill's mom because she asked if she could hang out until 9 o'clock that night when I needed to be. Jill's mom didn't know my mom at all, but they got to be really good buddies. And then my mom stayed until about 11 because my blood sugar, I guess, was trending in a way that they weren't comfortable with. Sorry, temp basal alarm. And so then my mom left, and she went home, and I stayed there, and I didn't sleep because I was playing with all my friends. And my mom didn't sleep because she was bugging out at home because her daughter with diabetes was at a sleepover for the first time. And at 5 o'clock the next morning, my mom, like, very gently, rapped on Jill's family's door again because she was there for breakfast because I needed to have my finger guillotined and take my insulin and, do the whole diabetes thing. And that's, I think, the most important part for my family is I don't remember any of that diabetes crap. My mom does, but I don't. And she really made it easy for me to continue to live well. This is a slide I'll keep up because it looks awesome. So like the mechanics of diabetes are one thing, but the living with it part is where it gets a little tangled. So there's one incident years and years ago, stuff of legends, where my blood sugar was 385, and there was a cupcake wrapper in the garbage, and there was like some chocolate around my mouth, and I guess my breath smelled like chocolate, but I didn't eat the cupcakes. There is no way. I would never do that. I'm a professional. But my mom was like, you ate them. You have to say that you ate them. Admit it, admit it, admit it. Bless you. And I refused to admit it. I looked her in the face. And I was like, no, Mom, I would never do that. I'm your good daughter, right? Remember me? And so we had this big blowout. And my mom is a very little, very sweet little lady. But she got really angry. And she kicked, well, you know those Tupperware bins you put sweaters in for like winter storage? You guys have winter out here? Yeah. So you put the sweaters in the bin. And she was so mad at me for lying to her face that she kicked a hole through the bin, this big blue bin, to the point where her foot got stuck in the blue bin. And we both stood there like, oh my God, Mom got violent. And I was terrified. I was like 9 years old at the time. And to this day, we still call it the blue bin incident. You don't want my mom blue binning again. But it was this really serious moment where she's like, you can't, it wasn't the blood sugar that kind of messed with her. It was the fact that I lied to her that really, really made her upset. It showed that I did not understand what I was dealing with. So she's like, listen, this is a forever disease. You have to get your head around this. Go to your room and think about what you've done. I was 9, so I actually did what she said. So I went to my room and I thought about what I had done. And so I tried to take things seriously. So I made a list. And this was the list that I made when I was 9. And it's the if I want to live list. It's very on the nose. So there's only 4 items on this list to my 9-year-old head. The first item is that I needed to test, which meant that I needed to lance my finger with that crazy-ass thing and check my blood sugar. The second thing was no cheating, which out of context reads weird. But what it means is, at the time, I was using the American Diabetes Association exchange plan for my meals. So you had to eat like a starch and a vegetable and a fruit and a fat. And we got to the point where I was eating a pat of butter with dinner because it said you had to have one fat. And we're like, well, eat the butter pat then, which is gross and explains a lot. But so no cheating on that specific diet. Shoot like Mom tells me means take the insulin that my mother is prescribing that I take. She says take 1.5 units, take that. Don't take 2, don't take 0, take what is prescribed. And these 3 things I could handle. I can do the mechanics. That's fine. It's the last bit. Now, even 30, almost 31 years later, that I still struggle with, and that's that be responsible part. How many of you are super responsible? Oh, who put your hand? Put your hands down, you're lying. No one is completely responsible. This is like a big thing that we have to do every day, and it takes a lot of sticking with it to be responsible. And that's what prompted me to want to start a website to connect with other people who had diabetes, because I was the only person with type 1 that I knew for miles. I thought everyone else in the world made their own insulin, and I was angry at them for doing that. And so I wanted to find people who I could say, oh, I'm high to, without them going, oh, and making that judgment that it wasn't blood sugar related. So it prompted me to start a website because I was in search of people who understood what it took every single day to manage this condition. Who has played Perfection? This game, or for those of you who have not played it, this is the worst game that has ever been invented by anyone. It is a plastic board with little puzzle shapes that go into the board, and you have to put the puzzle shapes, and there's like 50 of them, into the board in time before the timer goes off, which sounds okay until you add the part that the board is spring-loaded, so when the timer goes off, all that crap pops up in the air and flies at you, just as you've gotten all the pieces in the right spot. This is diabetes to me. This is exactly what it is, that you're always trying to put the little pieces where they go, and the timer goes off and you're screwed. But you guys laughing and clapping at that proves why we all need to be in this room together, because that is the kind of understanding and community that the rest of them don't get. Like, they don't understand this. Who has done this? Right? Because there's such a delicious, truly, irony to getting a banging A1C result and then going and eating a cupcake. And my husband and I mark my diabetes anniversary every year with a Carvel Fudgy the Whale cake, because that's what you're supposed to do, and they don't make Cookie Post anymore. Sorry, yes, this is gross too. I wanted to find people who understood that if your blood sugar is low, you will eat whatever it takes in order to bring it up. These were in my daughter's, her Halloween haul one year, and my husband and I were, oh, that's so gross, we should throw them out, but we just never ended up throwing them out, and the Halloween candy was collecting dust. Well, I ended up having a low, we were in the kitchen, didn't have any glucose tabs, no juice, all the, things were missing, so I had to crack open the box of gummy boogers. If you read, it says, tangy gummy boogies that look and feel real, and they taste real. Ew, right? But I ate them. You do what it takes, right? I wanted to find people who understood that it's important to take the best care of your diabetes, but sometimes it's inconvenient. Like if you're a woman and you're wearing a bra and an insulin pump and you happen to take your bolus and that shit lights up and you forget that it lights up. And you look, my daughter likes this very much. She says that I look like Iron Mom, which I really dig. But my husband and I were at a dinner meeting for his side of the business, and all my stuff starts going off, and he's like, you have disco boobs, which I totally thought was cool. So that's what he calls it. But I mean, this is part of the whole living well thing. This is a serious cat. I wanted to find a group of people who didn't make that face when I mentioned diabetes. How often do you see that? Maybe not from a cat. My cats don't look at me that way. But people sometimes, ooh, as if you're contagious or something they should pity, or they're just supposed to run and hide from you. I wanted to find people who got it, that it was something we could live with, right? I wanted to find all the rest of you. Like when we were traveling a couple months ago and I saw a lady who had the same pump as me at an airport, and I was dying to go up and introduce myself to her and hug her, but I really restrained myself because I'm a stranger at an airport, and that's weird when people do anything like that to you, and I'm not a hugger, but anyway, I would have totally hugged her because she knows what I'm dealing with. And I tried to be all subtle about it, I elbowed my husband, oh look, she's got a pump, oh yeah, that's cool. And my 7-year-old very, very loudly, Mom, she has diabetes, do you know her? Because she thinks we all know one another, which prompted the woman to come over to me and introduce herself, because we didn't know each other, but now we do. And there's just something so weird, you hear people's alarms going off, or you see their tubing, or you see the little lump of their CGM site or whatever, and you understand something about their lives that people in their personal space have no concept of. You can walk up to a stranger who has type 1, and you guys have walked the same walk, danced the same dance. You've done all the same stuff in a way that other people just can't understand. We live in our own nice little bubble, and it's nice when we have other people join us in there, right? Yeah. And I also wanted to find people who understood what it was like to deal with the comments over and over and over again about what I'm supposed to be doing to manage my diabetes, or to reverse my diabetes, or to prevent my kids from getting diabetes, or whatever their perception of diabetes is. Like the the unicorn frappuccino mess thing? You're all rolling your eyes I felt the breeze from that, because it's so annoying when everyone keeps saying, oh, this is diabetes in a cup, oh, it's diabetes in the cup, and you want to pretend that you're cool and that you can say, oh, I don't mind when people say that, I can handle the stereotypes, I've had this for 3 decades. But there's a part of you that gets a little bite when people don't understand what you're working so hard to control. We're trying to maintain a baseline that other people take for granted, and when they mock us for our condition, it gets a little itchy. It makes me a little mad. The balance, this kind of does it for me, because I feel like this is my life and my diabetes trying to work together. And they've got to stay on this line, right? They've got to stay mellow and not fall off the fence. But they have to be able to work alongside one another, and you can't knock one cat out. I like cat slides. I just want to make sure you're quite aware of that. But this kind of does it. This is the balance that I'm always working towards. I want to be able to walk along the fence and have diabetes along for the ride, but not like I'm dragging it, kicking and screaming. But it has to be part of my life journey. And that is what I struggle with, but also what I get inspiration from and help from when I'm in a community like this one. Since you've been here, have you felt a little better and a little more understood? Yeah? Yeah. It's like an amen moment, which I did. But this is the balance that we're looking for, and it's hard to hang on to, but when you get little moments of it, it's good to really hold on to those and appreciate them. And part of the whole, I know they're so cute. Part of the balance, I want to go home, is making decisions like these. So these are my two children. My daughter is 7 and my son is 10 months old as of Friday. And they were the thing that I was told I could not have. Aside from not making insulin, like I'm cool with not making insulin, I can handle that. But the idea for me of not making children really struck a chord that I wasn't happy with. And when I was diagnosed, they told my mom biological children were not a thing. Too hard, don't even try it. I was 7 at the time, so I didn't really care. I was still a child myself. I didn't want to think about having children. But as I grew older, the idea of making diabetes the thing that kept me from pursuing the goal I was in search of the most was heartbreaking. And so I take a lot of pride in showing my kids, because I think they have cute feet, and also because it's important to show that not every pregnancy story is you've seen Steel Magnolias, right? We didn't know how it ended. My mom and I sat down to watch it together, and we're like, oh, this is good. Diabetes is in the what? And then, so spoiler alert, the lady with diabetes dies. Not what you want. But the basic gist of it is, we as a group are changing the dynamic of how people see our disease. They don't always say, oh, my great-grandmother's grandmother had type 1, and she had no legs and no arms, and no one carried around in a backpack, and that sort of thing. That's always where they go with that, and that's so uncomfortable, because we are the new faces of diabetes. We're the people who are living with it and dealing with all the good and the bad of it, but still, living lives worth living, and I think that's super important. And I think you guys agree. But the bottom line of this whole thing at its rapid speed, and I'm very sorry it was so quick, but is that we all do what we're supposed to do, right? Or we think we're doing what we're supposed to do, and we try really hard. And even after 30 years, you could be perceived as an expert, even if you have a legend sticker, which I will get in a second. You can still be totally screwing it up. This is how diabetes is for me, on a regular basis, with all the tools. It's a dog in a jumpsuit and a space center, and I think that's part of the balancing part. It's okay to say that you have no idea what you're doing, right? And that you need help, and that even with the best tools and the best community and the best technology, that it is still okay to say, I don't know what I'm doing, and I'm okay with that. This is going to be hard. This is going to be something that I have to deal with, but somehow it's still okay. If you have this in your mind during your toughest moments, your moments become a little less tough. So I will leave you with the floating space dog to kind of encapsulate this entire talk, which was clearly about balancing diabetes. Now you guys know how to do it all, right? Okay, thank you very much.